discussion here that I wanted to do was so as you guys may or may not know, did that recent video about job balance being overrated, mostly in regards to people, players basically being the issue in all of those situations where it's not really that balance needs to happen in order to do a fight properly or have fun on a job. It's this class is doing better than my class and my class isn't meta anymore. So complain. Or this class is meta, so I'm going to keep you out of my party finder. That kind of thing. That the players being the main issue was kind of the thing. So to begin with, I'm going to go over some MMO history, just like some experience that you guys have had. Final Fantasy is the most for me, so mine's short. Jesse, you talked about being in Mythic rating for WoW.
Warcraft. A lot of World of Warcraft. I started playing WoW when I was 16.
Yeah, I did WoW when I was really young for a long time. Came back to it for End of Legion and beginning of Battle for Azeroth. So, and then I did Mythic rating then in Battle for Azeroth. It was fine. My group was cool, I guess. They were fine. I played a lot of I picked up a lot of random MMOs around the place, just like a lot of those free ones, and Final Fantasy's always kind of been there, playing that one around a lot too. So yeah, I have a lot of really weird experience with MMOs. I also played this game called Rift a lot, scary.
I haven't heard that in a long time.
That's I wouldn't normally suggest people go back and play that game. It's very pay to win now, but yeah, that's also where my experience comes from. I compare a lot of stuff in 14 to that game because that game did some things really well, much better than any MMO in existence. I.e. Chloromancer is one of the coolest things they've ever created, and other games just kind of don't have that.
I mean, for me, I've played WoW since Kata. That's when I started.
Okay.
I've played WoW on and off for a long time. I basically quit in Kata, came back for Mob, quit in Mob, then didn't come back till Legion. I was raiding in WoW and 14 at the same time when we were doing Heavensward stuff. Back in Creator, I think I was playing both of them. I was raiding in both of them.
Yeah, with Craig, right?
And then, yep, regrettably. And then quit again, and then came back for Shadowlands, then quit again. And then came back for Dragonflight. Yes, that's pretty much my entire experience with WoW is on and off. It's a love-hate relationship. And I'm now back playing Dragonflight. I have played it the entire time. I have not actually quit Dragonflight.
Look at you.
Finally. I did it. I've actually almost played an entire WoW expansion to its entire life.
I've heard it's been pretty good, too.
It's very good.
I have heard good things about this one. After being burned in the past, though, it's so hard to want to go back.
Yeah.
So I'm just
that's
Battle for Azeroth, even though I mythic rated in it, it kind of sucked. The whole thing just kind of sucked.
I always heard that BFA was really rough. I didn't play till the very tail end of it, and the only experience I had with it was the last season of M+, which was really fucking good. Oh my god, it was so good. And then Shadowlands was yeah.
Wait, no, Shadowlands did Shadowlands have the casts, join the vampires or the covenants?
Yeah, the covenants, yeah.
Covenants.
That was Shadowlands.
Okay, I played beginning of Shadowlands. So I played all the way through BFA and then beginning of Shadowlands.
Yeah, the Shadowlands was not great. It
had
some cool stuff.
Either.
I really liked Nathria, and I liked the second raid too. But a lot of Shadowlands was kind of a dumpster fire. But that's a whole other discussion in itself.
Yeah.
Other MMOs I've played a lot of Guild Wars, or not a lot, but I played Guild Wars a bit.
Guild Wars 2?
When it first came out. Yeah, Guild Wars 2.
Yeah, that game's awesome!
I really liked Guild Wars 2.
Yeah.
The game's combat was so cool and unique. I loved exploring and things like that.
I was just talking
it's
about that
mount
today.
system?
I haven't played much since, I stopped playing right before I stopped playing before the first expansion in Guild Wars 2. I mostly just explored, though. That was my college experience. If they let me have a laptop, I was playing Guild Wars. Just running around, exploring the map. Still digesting all the info, but having something to fiddle with, that was my saving grace. That's how I passed most of my classes.
I always
That
thought the
game was
concept
so much fun.
of, at least when it first came out, like then there was no like holy trinity, there was no like tanks, healers, DPS, that type of thing when it first came out. And I always thought that was really cool. But the problem that I remember was that the end game early on was really not there. It just kind of didn't exist, I think.
Yeah.
However,
Okay.
World v World slapped.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah, it
awesome.
did.
Yeah.
Oh, that was some good shit.
I still remember being in one game, I think, where it was, I think Mesmer, the one with the portals.
yeah.
And they would just bum rush into the enemy territory, place a portal, die, and then just 20, 30 people pop out of the portal out of nowhere. Just all Zerg. It was so funny.
I looked at Mesmer and I was just like, oh, it looks like fun. And I read about it. High skill class. Need a lot of attention. Got carpal tunnel. Things like that. When you look at Mesmer, and I'm like, no.
What did you end up playing?
I played Ranger. I had 2 specs. I did both the Beastmaster spec and the Druid spec. So the healer spec.
Nice.
For it. That was super fun. That was so fun to go around and actually capture monsters, and they all do different things. And I mean, like, each monster was like significantly different from each other. Like if you got a bear, it was super tanky and had a taunt, right? But you could also get like a lizard that blew fire and had no taunting abilities. There was like a support bird that you could get as well.
Yeah.
That like didn't do very much damage. It like literally like casted support stuff on you.
What did you play, Drak?
Flavor. I was a Char Guardian. I liked wielding either a greatsword or dual axes and spinning around. But I always tried to put on as much regen as I could onto my gear. I just wanted to be very hard to kill. So that's usually
what I
my
did.
build. Yeah.
Oh
I
my
played
God.
Guardian. I played Guardian too. My whole thing was I just do not want to give a fuck about anything. That was my whole job.
Yeah.
I just made myself as tanky as possible.
I still died a lot, but I tried.
The mount system in that game, oh my God, like no other game will ever match that because they just can't put the focus in that Guild Wars 2 has. That mount, all
I don't
the cool
think I
mounts you can
played the
have.
game when mounts got added. I don't think I ever got to experience it.
It didn't even have the Raptor mount out because the Raptor mount was like the basic like jump forward mount.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
You know what?
I remember.
This is making me. I'm gonna play Guild Wars over the next 6 months. That's what I'm gonna do. That's gonna be my MMO itch. I'm just gonna.
Oh, you should.
I'm gonna hop back.
And they like
in.
sell like their little.
Dude, I was so close. First, I asked my chat. I was like, hey, either a vote or dono goal or sub goal or whatever, if you want me to play World of Warcraft, and nobody bit at all. People were like, don't give a fuck. We don't care about World of Warcraft. And then I was like, man, Jesse's playing it, Sam's playing it. I'm gonna see what they're doing. I might take the dive. And then I looked at it and I was like, looks like shit, and I closed the game. I can't stand the aesthetic of World of Warcraft. I just can't.
That's always the thing that gets people sometimes that I hear a lot is they can't get past how WoW looks. And to me, I don't get it because it looks fine to me. It's very stylized.
Yeah.
Not like old WoW stuff. It still looks like shit, but I don't know. Like the new stuff looks really good to me.
Yeah. My brother was always into it. I tried it for I got one of those free to level 20 cards from a GameStop one time and went around and killed pigs for a little bit, and I was like, and just kind of fell out of it and never really continued on that path. I got into Final Fantasy 11.
I just always come back to WoW because of the class design. That's the thing that always gets me back, is how the classes play. That always gets me because it's so fucking cool.
Yeah. That's the other thing I should say. My other MMO experience is 11. I wasn't good at 11, but I played a lot of 11.
Did you hear that 11 came out with a new expansion recently?
Expansion?
Because you don't pay for the expansion anymore. They don't pay for any expansions for 11 anymore.
So-
It's just part of your sub
So
now. But like it's
update.
the Vanna, no, not Vanna deal.
And about?
Something like that. Echoes. Tara was just playing, and there's like apparently like if you've completed all the other expansions, you can do this one. It's one of those like after you've done it all sort of thing, you can join this one. It's like even beyond the Rhapsodies.
Oh, okay. I still need to finish that. I'm still paying for that sub. I need to do it. Expansion. I'll check that out for sure.
just thought I'd pass on it. Like it's one
Oh,
of the
yeah.
things that like when I go back into 11, I'm definitely going to be checking out. Like I'm going to have a goal of wanting to check it out. I won't be able to actually get to it because I haven't done enough of the content. Like finishing the one Asiatic city, the Asian influence one with the bathhouses and everything, and Anadil. No, that's
Not at Urgan, are you talking about?
Atragon. Yeah, Atragon.
Urgan, yeah. That MSQ sucks. I fucking hate at Urgan. I'm almost done with it, but there's like a million quests and you have to run around so far. Holy crap. Anyway.
Madeline 2 will take forever to finish as well, but we have a good start on that one.
Yes.
But we're still only like a few chapters in.
Yeah.
And then that we've talked about MMO background for 30 minutes.
So a lot of
we all have extensive background.
Yeah, that's surprising. So we got some experience to pull from, right?
We got some gamers here.
A
a couple games in my time.
A lot of people are talking about the homogenization of classes, but they typically, or what really started this whole thing was around the 2-minute problem, or seeing that 2 minutes as being a problem and having everything have to build a rotation around this 2 minutes, and being very like strict around that makes things feel a little bit samey. Some people feel that every job is very unique and different. Others feel that having the 2-minute thing makes it way too stale. So I'm curious as to kind of what your guys' thoughts are for the 2 minutes. Do you think it's limiting design? Would you like to see them go away? Do you care one way or the other?
Well, if you go with me, I would rather just see them all gone. I'd rather just get rid of all the 2 minutes. And in one way, so I saw this question when you get like little like overview of like what we'll talk about. And I was thinking about it. I think it would be kind of funny to have skill speed affect all of your cooldowns, skill and spell speed affect all of your cooldowns, rather than just like your GCD ones. So like, if you want to be fast, guess what? You're gonna have only a minute and a half on Brotherhood, and like even go as far as like the Grease Lightning affecting Brotherhood and things like that, and like it's forcibly moving it into a different spot in the rotation, because like simply not doing it and waiting for the 2 minute will be an actual DPS loss for you. It would make it more interesting for certain, and make it so that certain like buff windows are not going to always show up at like particular mechanics and feel like you're designed to do this, against your will.
Yeah.
Sort of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're moving away from like 2 minute window, it's kind of just how WoW is right now, or how it's been for a long time. Like you're more responsible for your own personal CDs than you are the group overall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like because that's how WoW is, right? Like I have my stuff, and it doesn't affect anybody else really, other than maybe a couple exceptions. Like Priest has a thing called Power Infusion, right? And they can give it to somebody else, and it gives them a bunch of haste, which is WoW's equivalent to skill speed, right? That's like an external cooldown that's in WoW, and that's about it, other than like augmentation evoker, but that's like a whole thing I'm not going to get into because that's a lot of stuff to explain.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is just you have your stuff, you hit your buttons, you do it right. That's it. Like there's no real aligning happening other than maybe like a couple external things and the big funny raid button called Heroism, which is a fuckload of skill speed to everyone in the raid all at once. But it's on a 10-minute cooldown during a fight.
What was it, Time Stop or whatever mages have?
Time
mages
Warp.
Still have it?
Yep.
Okay.
Time Warp, Heroism,
Time Warp.
Bloodlust. Forget what the Evoker one's called, but yeah, it's still a thing.
Because that
Walker's
stuff,
got it too. Okay.
Yeah, they have it too.
that stuff
Hunter
would have
has
been
it
cool
too.
before, but there's always been stuff stopping. So like what you're saying, right? Getting a whole lot of skill speed or whatever and having that affect it. Right now, it's the 2 minute windows. Before it was TP. So we always were really limited on what builds were even viable or what you could do with that kind of stuff based on something, right? In the design philosophy. Because it's especially weird. Like you see it in Monk, right, where people want to do the double light opener, so that they get the. I always want to call it Star Shatter dive, or the. What do they call it in 14? It's Tifa's move from 7 remake. The
Seventh Heaven?
No, it's the one where you're like zipping around. Not the limit break, but Gosh dang it.
I know what movie you're
I'm a
talking about.
monk,
I can't remember the name of it either. Where's that job guide I had open earlier? Hold on.
Phantom Rush.
Phantom Rush. That's it. So you'd basically not or postpone your first Phantom Rush. So now you get your next Phantom Rush during a 2-minute. To line it up properly. With Machinists, it was don't put out Queen at full power twice, and then on your 2-minute you get her at full power, and then on the 1-minute windows you have to let her out early. She's getting hangry. Let her go get her meat, and then she or her oil, whatever, and then on the 2-minute she's ready to go. You have full 100% gauge. So. Yeah, I don't like that aspect of it because I'm not mad at the people who've come up with those rotations because you need to, like right now, 2-minute windows are a must. You have to have them because everything is designed with a hard enrage. As long as
designed for you to optimally dump everything you can into 2 minutes. I actually want to bring up something that someone said in your chat too in a minute if you want to elaborate on your thought first.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to do it now?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
It's what gentleman said in chat. Removing 2 minutes or whatever homogenization, wouldn't it result in less cohesive group play? I would say partially, because there's a couple exceptions where, like, okay, the idea with 2-minute is we all use our shit at the same time. You do it, you hit your funny buttons. That's how it should be, right? The thing is, very rarely, this happened to us already as an example in P12, right? Where we had to delay 2 minutes for it to line up properly with everyone else's 1 minutes, right?
Yep.
After the thing. That is one of those scenarios where, as a group, we had to come up with an idea of where these things line up properly, and that's how that works, right? But the problem is that 9 times out of 10, most times you're just doing 2 minutes, and that's it. There's no real thought in play. There's no thought involved. You're just hitting your buttons. There's not really a lot happening there. It just all kind of magically aligns itself, right? The thing with WoW, as an example, the counterpoint of like what you said, Raya, where everyone just has their own thing, right? Or whatever. Instead of having a group play thing, with the exception of a couple extra things, like I said, like priest or augmentation, etc. You, instead of focusing on the let's all line up our stuff together, it's you're doing your shit and you're focusing on the mechanics that are happening, right? Because WoW mechanics usually tend to happen a lot faster than 14, a lot less scripted. I'm not going to say they're not completely scripted at all, but there's things that are happening more often, I guess, right? Than in something like 14, where it's like, we know the boss is going to do their big funny AoE. We know this thing's going to happen, and we're going to have to like stack our spreader, blah, 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 blah. Like, that happens too, but at least in my mind, it always feels a lot faster. And also, WoW fights are a lot shorter too, for the most part. Like, most WoW fights are usually around like 3-4 minutes. They're pretty quick, but it's just you're more involved in like how to deal with things properly within a certain fight. Like, I could give an example of a current fight, but that'd be kind of a lot to explain for anyone that's never played WoW before, or doesn't have a lot of experience with it.
WoW mechanics though are also like designed with like DBM in mind, or like anything else that's like
there's things that help you too.
Things. Yeah, because like they're designed in that same way, which is why the whole fight feels different. Because like 14 fights are designed with you not having any assistance. Granted, some people still get it, but it's designed to not have any assistance. And then WoW fights are designed to have, move out, move in, kind of little call outs coming from a third party source.
Yeah.
Which gives it a whole different feel. Like, it just makes the whole thing feel different because, like, when you're designed that way, you're gonna rapid fire those mechanics out there, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's like 100% true. Like, the dev team like literally designs mechanics with the idea that people are going to use add-ons for them. Like, that's just kind of how it is. There's a couple exceptions to that with like weak auras kind of cheesing certain things, but that's like a whole other. I'm not going to get into that. But there's definitely like the pacing of WoW just feels a lot better, especially because you're not worrying about like that kind of group dynamic, right? You're worrying about yourself and you're doing the thing and making sure that like if you're a healer, you're keeping people alive, and if you're a tank, you're staying alive, and you're damaged, you're doing as much as you can, right?
Yeah, because even
that's like the whole thing.
Right now, the cohesiveness of it isn't really an active thought. You're just hitting your 2-minute buttons. Like everything is on the same thing, so you're hitting things at the same time in 14. So
Yeah.
it's not really. I've never felt like I'm always felt more like put out of, oh shit, I missed this window, or this came out earlier, this came out late, so now this thing, my ability, I'm either having to sit on it or whatever to get optimal stuff out of it.
I just realized something I wanted to bring up with another thought of the thing I was just talking about. There is more group play in WoW 2 that doesn't stem from just your CDs, right? And again, it's the mechanics of it usually. But for CDs, especially as a healer in WoW, in a mythic situation, you need to have your shit as a healer set up properly for when you're using certain things or not, right? Because like in 14, we have our healer cooldowns of like, fucking white mage has wings, right? You've got, I guess a size would count in my mind, a size or like your OGCD stuff, right? Or your big, like I think Astro still has neutral sect. Do they still have that? I think they do.
I don't know.
And then Scholar has deploy. The one where you get your shields and regens when you cast your aspected or whatever.
I never really thought about it.
I don't know if they have that or not, but like deployment tactics, your Seraph for Scholar, the thing, your like Panheima for, you know what I'm talking about, like all those big things.
Your tools.
Yeah, all of your tools. And WoW is the same thing for healers too, where you need to line these things up for like a big raid damage that happens, because like WoW raid damage is usually a lot more consistent than just one big hit usually.
Yeah. Bunch of small hits.
Yeah, and with that, there's a lot of group play with that. With tanks, obviously, there's so much more to tanking in WoW than there is in 14 usually, especially with like boss placement and stuff like
so
that.
You actually have to place the boss.
Yes, there is so much more with that than in 14. And for the DPS, usually, or for the most part, it ends up being this kind of group dynamic of making sure that the melee are doing their thing properly and the range are doing their thing properly, right?
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's mechanics where like the melee have to deal with this part of it, then the range deal with it, and the melee, or like you have your own subsections of groups dealing with this mechanic while the others are dealing with this thing. Like there is still that kind of group play happening, but we don't have to deal with 2-minute window stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like you're still having to do these other things that aren't just hit your funny button, all of you all do everything at once type of thing.
Yeah, you get to be a little bit more loosey goosey with it, and it's kind of what I put in here is something that I saw in the comments, and again in chat, like removing all party buffs, just making it all personal. That's kind of a big thing right now. Is if you just remove the party buffs, that's a huge part of it, the lining up not being necessary anymore. Because I think this started at the end of 2.0 and at the start of Heavensward. Because I'm pretty sure Heavensward is when we got Litany and Brotherhood. Or I don't know if we had Brotherhood yet. I think Brotherhood was Stormblood.
I think Heavensward was kind of the start of that, yeah.
But
that was also back when we had some things still misaligned. Yeah, Trick Attack.
It was
Trick
Ninja.
Attack window.
Ninja's the whole reason that this is even a discussion. Because everybody wanted all their burst in Ninja's Trick Attack window. Which is fine. But at the same time, it's nobody had it all lined up at that point. So then everybody was trying to do it themselves, said it was too difficult. Hey, Yoshi P, can you make it more easy? Or can you make it easier for us so that we can all just have our big buttons during Trick Attack and stuff? And he's like, okay. And then people were like, wow, it's boring now.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So that's really where it stemmed from. And it's hard to, as long as people want to do that, 2-minute windows are going to be a thing. If people want to optimize for that, you could always just kind of go willy-nilly, but at this point in the game, I think the DPS checks, everything can still clear the fights just fine doing the 2-minute windows. But if you deviate from that, I don't think DPS checks are going to get hit, and every fight revolves around a DPS check. Not against
current
DPS
game design,
checks,
yeah.
but you know, if in the old style it was soft enrages, a lot more soft enrages, and you know, hard enrages every now and then, where it's like you have to stop this enemy from doing this thing. Like it felt more climactic. Maybe I'm just having rose-colored glasses looking back on it, but yeah, that was really the start. Because before it was just hit your buttons when they're up, and then just do it that way and line it up on your own kind of a thing. Yeah, that's why a lot of cool things. Like for me, what I would really want is for Monk to have a 100 fist ability, and I would want it to be channeled, kind of like flamethrower, but instead of fire, you're sitting there and just throwing out 100 punches like rapid fire, and just it ends with a really big hit. But you've got to move or whatever, or if it's not in the 2-minute window, then you're sitting on it for too long, or there's too much movement during the 2-minute window, so then you can't use it. Like it becomes a problem instead of just being like, okay, now I can finally like on my own decide this is safe to use this now, let it rip, and then let it go. But
I mean, especially with the buffing thing, like removing all those random buffs off of like other classes, like Monk getting rid of Brotherhood, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a great idea. I think move them all to like Dancer and Bard.
Yeah,
give like all those buffs and like have them just sit there and just like that's a rotation, just rotating these things. I bring it up again. Rift had a class called the Archon where it didn't do a lot of damage, but it gave the entire party like a 20-second, 25-second buff, and you had like 4 to 6 of those to like maintain. Yeah, and so like by the time you got around to like finishing off buff number 6, buff number 1's falling off, so you're rotating it back in buff number 1, right?
Oh, so it's like an ever-present thing. You're literally like Levin Bard.
Yep, yeah, and if you're fast, yeah, you get an extra like power combo and you get to do an extra like pure attack. But then it's like, okay, got to get buff number 1 up because it's pure attack percent, and then buff number 2 for haste percent or whatever it was.
Yeah, and that kind of like leads into the next part is that why they, so issue number 1 is that we have a lot of hardened rages, which necessitate 2-minute rotations, and you
the current game design.
Yes, in the current game design,
it's not so much that they're having the enrage. It's like it's just by nature of how the game is made, you are going to do your 2 minutes correctly, or you're gonna have a bad time. Like that's just how it works. There's no in between. You will do it. There is no anything else.
Yeah. So that's problem number 1. That leads to problem number 2, where you've got players seeing really optimal jobs and saying, well, in order to clear this content, we need the most optimal jobs. Normally, it's not even true. Like
there is so much I could say for this right now.
there's
so much.
Good players at the game know how to play their job. And I don't think a lot of mid-high or people who consider themselves mid-high, the boobs on the right side of the graph in the video, who think they're hot shit, but all they've done is memorize what was put in the Balanced Discord. No shit did Balanced Discord. You're doing great work over there. But they memorize all that stuff in there. I don't want people to think that I'm throwing shade at the wrong folks. People who are coming up with stuff and optimizing, you're doing great. Love you. Thank you for letting me not think. But I'm also not going to sit there, at least not anymore since I've matured a bit. Not going to sit there and be like, oh, you're not doing that? Trash. You're trash. You're not allowed in my group. You're garbage. But that's what a lot of these players will do. They think, oh, well, we need the best jobs, where it's really just like overcompensating for their inability to do basic mechanics. And you see that a lot. I hear the story a lot where people are like gatekeeping certain jobs, even in this, the state of 14 as it is, like you can't have this job or this job in this group. And like their issue isn't even damage. It's just they can't finish the mechanics. They think that finishing the fight earlier by some small margin is going to help them do that. So yeah, the second part is the player's perception that these things are required to do content, right? And whether that will probably exist even if there aren't hardened rages. I'll throw that out there, that I totally accept that there's probably players out there that are just going to be like, oh, you're not playing the best class, or you're playing the worst class then, So yeah, it's but my thing is like, if we just, I think a lot of people are saying that the tools that we have right now, like the block buttons, the ban list, the reporting, don't really work. I don't know in what way, so I can't comment on it too much. But as long as that stuff is working, just put all those people in a hole, cover up the hole, and forget about them.
So the blacklist thing I do know about. So that one just prevents PF effects of blacklisting, but like you could still randomly get put into a DF party with someone who you blacklist. And that's the part that people don't like, is like, when I blacklist somebody, it's because I don't want to see them ever again.
Right.
And I have seen people on my blacklist in my, alliance raid party and be like, oh goody.
Yeah, here
Like,
we
I
go.
blacklisted you last week. I remember you. Why are you here? Why am I here? I don't care. Kick me out.
Yeah.
It's a thing. Sorry, I had a little tangent thing. It's been a thing among group of friends who are just like, okay, why is the blacklist not working? Because we're trying to there's some players out there who will literally do nothing, and I mean actually nothing, like just standing there.
Right.
I'm like,
They're leeching.
I don't want you to just stand there. Like, if you don't know what you're doing, I don't care. Die to everything. I'll res you back up when I got my 1 minute quick res. But don't just stand there. Don't just stand there. We notice.
Yeah.
Anybody listening?
We see you, and we don't want to do anything with you again.
We're talking about you. We're warning other players about you.
Yeah. So yeah, I didn't know that. So that's good. So they need to address certain things like that to make the blacklist a little bit more effective. Because if there are actual consequences for people being douchebags in the game, then and it's not even that they need SE to come in and ban them directly. It's that socially, if you have this player that's always a dick, always an elitist, doesn't know what they're doing, but always tells other people what to do, eventually enough people will not want to do things with them where they can't find people to do it with. Or they'll eventually move on from the game because they're realizing that they can't get anywhere. That kind of social engineering has to happen at some level. And will it alleviate it entirely? Will everything all of a sudden become a utopia? No. But at least having the tools to weed out people who are going to make the game a living hell is a must when moving forward with something like this. Because again, it's with support jobs, would be super fun having something that just gives you buffs or gives you special buffs, or either, like you were saying, has 6 buffs up at a time, or maybe 1 or 2 buffs that are double potency, right? Mm-hmm. And they just maintain that for the whole time. They're not really doing a whole lot of damage themselves, but they're giving the party something else to do, or giving them benefits. But right now, Square is well, if one of these jobs is too good, then people are only going to want to take those jobs, and then everybody else is going to get left out. Which is where I usually start tying into develop a static is one way to alleviate that. Not the perfect way. It's still hard to do, but it is an option that people have.
I have so many thoughts on just job design and things like the meta. I am not someone who's actually against the meta. I think the meta is helpful for those who are struggling on a fight, maybe with their static, and they can't figure out how to change it. Maybe change your classes around a little. If you really like this group of people to play with, you can play something more meta, something a little stronger. Maybe it's easier and does more damage. I'm gonna put Summoner out there. Summoner, I played it all this tier, and it's not a very hard caster class. Pick it up, and it does a lot of damage for no reason. Just kind of press the shiny button, and you're gonna do top tier damage compared to other ones. Whereas if you play something maybe Monk or Ninja, you're gonna be putting a lot more thinking, a lot more of your throttles into that one. You're gonna have to really align all your buttons up, make sure you're doing the right rotation, the right things. The shiny button isn't always necessarily the right one you're gonna be pressing next.
Yeah, I definitely am not against meta stuff. One, it's always going to exist. As long as the game's out, and as long as people are able to optimize, and they should optimize because that's the way that some people enjoy playing the game. They pulling apart every little thing and making sure they're doing the absolute most damage. The issue is when people are well, why aren't you playing that?
The problem stems from when people think that that's what you should be doing all the time.
Yeah.
I'd also make the argument, I guess first things first is meta is always going to happen.
Yep.
No matter what. It happened in early Final Fantasy, Realm Reborn, that still existed, I'm pretty sure. Been a long time. Even in Heaven's Ward and stuff like that. It's always going to happen. And at least in my mind, the way I always see it is meta's typically used for, World Force teams or very, very hardcore groups is where it matters the most. When you're doing the content at its hardest, when you have the least amount of gear, right? Yep. That's the idea, is you would want to play the most optimal thing with what you have at the time at that level as best as you can. That's like the idea. And it would still hold true, like if like X class, like let's say for example in WoW right now, rogues are very good, and I mean like broken.
Yeah.
They're extremely fucking good. And or like an example, let's say 14. I don't even know what would be fucking meta anymore. I don't fucking pay attention to that anymore. Let's just say like Black Mage or something is like super fucking good, very good DPS, like the best caster in the game, and how much damage they can potentially do. Right, that's great, but and kind of a counterpoint to what you're saying, Raya, is like you could change your jobs and be like, oh, let's do the meta thing, and you know maybe it'll help us out, maybe it'll be a little bit more optimal, right? But the thing is, let's say for the tanks, as an example, let's say it's a Gunbreaker Warrior, and Corey and I both have, like, if we had to go meta, right, we'd have to play that. And Corey goes Gunbreaker, I would have to go Warrior. I'm gonna tell you right now, I will play Warrior worse, even if it's meta, than I would play like Paladin or Dark Knight. And it wouldn't matter if it was meta or not. I would still play the thing that I know I'm good at, because I would definitely be able to play it more optimally than the thing that's technically supposed to be better.
Yeah, I think more of the point, at least from what I understood from Raya's, because you're right, Jesse. But also like some of the
I'm
things
not
that
saying
are really
Raya's point
good-
is wrong.
Yeah,
I'm just saying like that's like another logic of when to actually use meta or not, right?
Yes.
Like that it's more that, because like if you are struggling in the sense of like, oh, you're doing what you're supposed to, but like literally you just cannot output the damage, right? Like you should probably try to maybe swap some stuff out. But for the most part, 14's balance doesn't really have that problem, I think. It hasn't really been that ever, I think. As far as I'm aware, I can't think of a time where a class was like literally dead weight. Like I cannot think of a time that ever happened.
Yeah. But that's
14's got great class balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And taking things away like the 2-minute windows and letting them be a little bit crazier with job design, doing a little bit more flavorful stuff, is probably going to open up the gates for maybe not a huge disparity, but a greater one that we know. Because right now, they can parse out exactly what's going to happen every 2 minutes, every 1 minute. That's how everything's lined up. Nothing's interacting weird or changing things up, or, you know, everything is exactly as as they expect it to be. So if they go off the cuff, like UCP said in that one article about the 2 minutes, it's like we can make things crazy, and we're fine having things be a little crazy, but you know, you guys asked for this, and it will be crazy, you know.
Yeah, I would love to see some crazy come out, because like I agree, Jesse, that like, you know, if you would switch over to Warrior versus Paladin, like you would play Paladin a lot better. You know, I don't think all people are going to have that sort of mentality tied to their job. Some people don't play one job super a lot.
Oh
or even
yeah,
one
no,
role
it's
very
like
much
the
so.
average player probably wouldn't have that kind of, I guess, experience, or like, not to like toot my own horn, like class knowledge, like that type of thing, right? Like, no, not everyone's gonna think like that, right? That's the issue. And you know, people usually just end up following the, oh, this thing is the best, I'm gonna do that, you know what I mean? Like, and
but if you got like a red mage, you know, and they're playing and they're like maybe not doing as much DPS, let's say you're not taking on a third party, but you can notice that the red mage is staying down there in the threat. You look at your threat orientation, I don't know what rank you're at, and they're always sitting at number 5. You know, you can switch up to Summoner, which is a pretty simple class to just kind of pick up and play and do a lot of damage to it. And Summoner overall, on average, higher, medium, lower variance of damage, and higher average of damage as well, goes to Summoner. It might help your group just a little bit, just to kind of go with maybe a little more meta, even though it's not your favorite.
Well, you're also bringing up ease of access too, because it's not just that it's doing more damage; it's that it's doing good damage without needing to think a lot.
Yeah,
which is a big part of the conversation too, and
that's the problem with 14, I think, because of like how class design is right now. Is because that goes into like homogenization and things being very simple, all the 2-minute tide stuff. It's like, why do this thing when I can do this that's much easier to play but does more damage? There's a lot like, well, there's not enough variety in how the play styles are that it makes it, I guess, like for most people to think like I'm just going to keep playing this thing or I'm just going to play the meta instead.
Yeah. Yeah, you really have to be attached to the class for one reason or the other to do that. I know for a long time it wasn't even that Monk was bad. Like Monk always did really good damage. But I just remember being like, why do I have to go through all this hell just to keep my skill speed when Samurai does it in 2 buttons? This is bullshit.
Yeah.
I got so mad. It's like, why is this the thing? Why are we having to work so much harder and then getting slow? Felt really bad to play. Somebody's just like, you complain all the time when your job isn't the best. I'm like, no, I complain when it's not fun.
I want to point out something that some people were saying was like some classes were bad during, or like quote bad during P8, that tier right before they got buffed or whatever. What I specifically mean when I'm talking about like this class being bad, or what like 14's balance has been very, very, very good for a long time.
Yeah,
I think overall.
Mm-hmm.
And when I mean dead weight, I mean dead weight. Like if you were playing this class, you are throwing. Like there's no way you could like keep up the damage or the healing or whatever. Like I'm talking like you are literally fucking useless. Like I don't think that's ever happened ever. And
Ninja
I know
in the beginning of Stormblood, Yulmore. When did we get Yulmore? Shadowbringers.
that was
Shadowbringers.
Shadowbringers.
In Ninja beginning of Shadowbringers, that was rough. They did a mid patch for to like fix Ninja there. That was one time it got rough for ninjas. Like only the best ninjas out there could even like come up average to the rest of the
But
player
like
base.
people could still do it though, right? That's the point.
yeah.
Is like it could still happen, not for the
yeah.
general populace,
Yeah.
but the like that's more so my overarching point, that it's still possible if you know what you're doing, right?
Right.
Not so much that like in general, like yes, things need to be balanced. Sometimes classes are a little bit weaker than they should be, but
Yeah. And in those situations, adjustments should be made, right? Like the balance should always bring the poor classes up, whether it be a little extra damage, a little like 1 or 2 more tools, but not making everything the exact same and then taking out all damage variation because of that. You know? It's like, well,
you need that
of
variance
course,
to make things interesting still.
Yeah, like let things be interesting. Let every job be able to clear content. That should always be the goal. But if one job is clearing it even 50% faster, yeah, if people want to do that, then fine. But as long as you're able to clear the content the way that you want to, there's really not anything bad. Like if that 50% isn't a huge detriment, you know, and that's an extreme, right? Doing something like twice as fast. But if you're skipping the end mechanic on something with a few jobs, some people will do that. Sure as hell did it during Zervan. You know, skip soar was a thing. We are not discounting that these pockets in the community exist and that it has happened and that Square doesn't want it to happen so that people have fun. But yeah, if like literally if you deal with those people, you're just that's fine.
We are proud people. Okay.
Yeah, no, I was waiting for you.
Points at Raya.
I'll let you finish with that. Be like, we are
You.
proud people. We are not going anywhere. And by the way, Ness cleared that with 2 tanks,
We
and
did.
the meta was to only bring 1 tank. Okay, so that was not that hard to clear. Okay, skip sword disbanded, and I stand by that.
Exactly.
Skill
Don't
issue.
meta.
But I mean, like, if people want to do that, though, that's totally fine. But it's like, make sure you, at least for the skip soar, it was very, very clearly laid out in the PF. Don't join if you're not ready to do this. Like, if you don't think you can do it, if we can't do this, then don't join. Kind of a thing. I think it's totally fine if people want to have a meta experience or want to do things optimally. Like, no issues whatsoever. But, you know, we've had some people come in during Mount Farms, I think. Or we were trying to do a couple runs of something, and Keaton was in there with, I don't know if you were there, right, Raya, but yeah, we just had we were just needing a few people, so we were trying to get in somewhere, and somebody goes, oh, you have this class, or oh, you're doing this or this, and then they just left. It's like, at least they weren't super rude about it, but it was like, I don't think that really would have mattered. I think your mindset was the worst part of that whole interaction.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about what class you bring. as long as you bring the DPS or do your job, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone's got to bring the DPS. I'm
You
sorry.
have to
it's
know
14.
how to
You have
play the
bring
game.
DPS, even if you're a healer or a tank.
That'll ruffle some feathers. Healer DPS.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Excuse
do
me.
DPS is 14. Okay, if you want to not do DPS as a healer, go play WoW.
I would argue that.
My
but
box
you're right.
is green, sir. No, I like doing
14
damage.
is literally balanced around tanks and healers doing damage too. Like just how the game is, and it's been that way for a long time.
But they
That
said
WoW
they
right
didn't.
now?
WoW not so much still, but you can definitely easily DPS as a healer in a raid. That's not that hard. Like it's really not hard to DPS as a healer. It depends on your healer too, because sometimes your DPS is a part of your rotation, like Paladin or like
Right,
Mistweaver.
yeah. I was kind of neglecting or not including the Discipline Priests and the Holy Paladin.
Yeah, Disc Priest too.
So
I was thinking like
But like Resto Shaman or Holy Priest or
Resto
etc.
Druid.
Yeah, like you can. It's funny you say that because Resto Druid had a bug where they could do like 1 million DPS right now. It was really funny.
Really?
Yeah, it was disgusting. It was. I think it was Resto or maybe Balance, but it's like it. You should DPS as a healer in WoW if you can. Like, there's no reason not to, right? Like, if nothing's happening, you don't have to heal. Just fucking hit your buttons. Who cares, right? Like, it's not that big a deal. In 14, it's much easier to do that because everything's fucking scripted.
yeah.
You can literally just DPS when nothing is happening. Let regens do their job. Do not overheal. It
There's
is
a
wasted
lot of
healing.
downtime happening.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a lot. I'm kind of
Like,
moving.
I'm sorry, that 24 man where we noticed the healer standing there doing absolutely nothing. We're like,
Yep.
you are clearly just AFK or something. Like, we notice because there's nothing going on.
See, the thing is, like, I'm definitely a big person of being like, I would prefer that the healers, do their fucking job of actually just healing. Because that's where I find a lot of the enjoyment out of it. That's why I like healing in WoW a lot more, because that's usually what you end up doing like 9 times out of 10 in a raid fight. But in 14, you just can't do that with how 14 is designed. Like, you have to do your fucking damage. Like, you have to.
Yeah.
There's no. It's a mix of that's just how the design is, and again, scripted. You can very easily tell when you can just hit your buttons.
Yeah.
You know what to use. You know when to use it. Hit your buttons.
Raya voice. Drak, you're a savage raider. Use cleric stance.
Yeah, like if we still had it, absolutely. And don't fuck it up and double click it and then I turned it back on. Now you all die. Like, oh my god, I held that. That was probably a double standard I held, and I probably still do to this day. Of like, use cleric stance. Don't be bad. Use cleric stance, but also don't screw up and double click it so you put it back on, and then you get everybody killed while
You
it's
have
on
to sit
cooldown.
there for like 3 seconds before you can turn it back off again. I think
Yep.
is what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I held both those things in my head of like, don't do this and don't do this. Play it perfectly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Be perfect.
Just don't fuck up. Same thing with 8-man checks. Just don't fuck up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's literally that simple.
Yeah.
I don't know what the problem is. If you just did it right.
Just survive.
Gosh. Oh, just less, please. Less in the next expansion. Do it as much as you want in Ultimates. That's the whole point. But oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we kind of went back to WoW for a little bit. And I did want to touch back on that as we close
World of
out
Warcraft.
here. What?
World of Warcraft. I love World of Warcraft.
So with all so WoW is known for having a whole bunch of diversity in the jobs that you can play or the classes that you play and the specs that each class has.
Would you like a list?
And it's no, I'll take your word for it. But there is a lot to balance, and I'm not suggesting that Square does anything like that, but at least moving in favor of things that are more diverse, which is going to be hard because the 14 community, the loud people are so pampered. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, the fact that, some of the critiques are just dumb to begin with. Samurai got an extra 5 yalms of range to use their Iaijutsu. Are they a caster now? Shut the fuck up. Or like Yoshi P being like, please don't freak out. Reaper has a fast window. Try it before you complain about it. And them having to basically, you don't get the patch notes until the day before because you're not going to You can't be trusted with them. You can't be responsible with the patch notes.
Are you
You're
talking about
not getting
14
them.
patch notes?
Yeah.
Oh my god, they drive me fucking crazy. I hate it.
Just
Literally,
people,
like,
so late?
WoW is just like, hey, here's all the updates we're gonna do like 2 weeks in advance. Like,
well, what
they
happens?
tell you everything.
What happens with 14 though is that if they give everything in advance, because they used to, like a month out or 2 weeks out, then everybody would be off in the discords. Dead class. Nope, this job's dead. Nope, they killed this job. No, this job sucks now. Monk sucks now. It's all garbage. It's like, it's not though. You haven't even played it. You have no idea what you're talking about. And then it comes out and people are like, this is awesome. Idiots, dude.
For the sake of it.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ryan. Go ahead. No, go.
Honestly, that's exactly how I felt about Scholar at the beginning of this. I'm like, oh, Scholar got screwed out of their ultimate move. Like, they got the worst freaking one, and then I actually played them and be like, oh, never mind, they won. They actually got the best
This is the best.
They got the best one. Like, I'm sorry, everybody else, you lose compared to Scholar.
Yeah.
I have posted for posterity in raid chat the current 90th percentile of DPS statistics in World of Warcraft. Take it with a grain of salt because WoW fights are not just hit boss. There's a lot more variance to it, but that's just like what the current balance looks like.
Yeah, people are making it sound a lot worse. Like there was a 30% discrepancy between the highest.
There was.
Well,
there was. Okay.
There was in the first week. I can get a picture of that if you want.
Take Demonology Warlock and just compare it straight down to Feral Druid. Like that's a rather significant.
It's a pretty
difference.
big gap. Yeah. The further and further down you go.
The fact that there's so many classes to kind of tear it off makes it look not so bad. But I mean, like we're gonna ignore Evoker altogether because they're designed to be really low DPS. They're buff class, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're basically
class.
like WoW's version of Dancer. They're like the only class in the whole game that's entire thing is buffing. That's your job.
Yeah.
That's it.
So let's look at like Feral Druid, who is sitting at the bottom right now, like, and compared to Demonology Warlock, we're looking at what 78% versus 88%. Yeah, that's a 10% difference.
Here's the first week.
Oh yeah, that's the one I remember
fucking
seeing.
Broken.
The Rogue.
98%.
That was insane.
It was really dumb, and then they nerfed them for good reason.
Yeah. So
my homie Destro Warlock dead last. Ugh, pain.
So that's all
Behind
present
Evoker.
in WoW.
Like right now, what, all those classes? That's all DPS.
Well, yeah, that all the the or specs and how varied each thing is. A lot of variety. So and people always say people are shitheads in WoW. People gatekeep WoW. All this stuff.
Yeah.
So how does that go with it being present in a game? Obviously, we can't do things exactly one for one in 14. People have tried to like kind of use that argument.
You mean like if 14 had the more free-form stuff we were talking about earlier?
Yeah,
like
not necessarily specs, but not things that like we're not adhering to 2-minute windows anymore. We're a little bit more freeform. We have support jobs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
WoW. Are we talking specifically DPS?
I just mean like the
tanks,
the
like
player-to-player
6-7
dynamic,
healers.
right? The interactions between players, the people who
WoW
will.
community's dog shit. Like
they're rough.
there's no sugarcoating it. It's pretty bad. But that's because. No, go ahead.
I'll say because Draco, the one thing I would think about is if you ever started playing WoW, I think you would, if you got into it, you'd play all the way up until you convince yourself to download Raider.io, and then you'd hate it.
Oh, you don't need that anymore, really.
They don't do Raider.io anymore because that was so huge back in BFA. That was like your identity number.
They used to do it because that's how you track how well you do in Mythic Plus, I believe, and kind of Raid too. But they added their own Mythic Plus like number system already.
So they did their own Raider.io.
Yeah, they did their own, and it's still toxic. It didn't really fix anything.
No, the whole design of it's basically a number that says this is how good you are, and it just kind of tracks certain things.
That's literally what it is.
Yeah, and like you would be like, let me join Raider.io, blah blah blah, and then it'd be like, oh yeah, sure, you're good enough to be in my party.
The way it maths out, right? Okay, so the way Mythic Plus works in a very dumbed down, easy way to explain is it's imagine 14 dungeons, right? All the dungeons we get for leveling, right? And you had them be end-game things you can do, and you get a keystone for a dungeon, and it has affixes to it, so it changes the dungeon. So, like, there's 2 alternating weeks of bosses do more damage and have more health, and another week of the trash has more health and more damage, right? And then there's a couple other little things that happen in between that for other affixes. I'm not going to get into it 'cause it's too much. And as you progress through them, they go from +2 to infinitely. They will infinitely scale as far as you can actually do them, right? In terms of how much health and damage they add to the dungeons. So the way the number tracking works for your score is what was the key level you did, and did you time it fast enough? Because it's on a timer. You're basically speed running the dungeon, right? And the idea is the higher key you do, the better your score is. The more you do them on each subsequent week, the higher your score gets. And people will look at that and be like, oh, you're applying to this group and your score is this, then we're not going to accept you because your score is poopy and you didn't clear this level of the key that you're trying to sign up for. And people are super toxic about it. It's awful. Trust me. I've literally queued for like an hour trying to get into a key and they won't let me in. But it's rough. But that's just because of the nature of the WoW community. And also, like, you have to remember that WoW has add-ons. We have parsers. Everybody's got them. So if you're not doing your shit, people are gonna know. You know, there's no hiding it. And it's funny because there was a thing with augmentation when it came out, was that the parsers couldn't read its buffing potential, right? Like, it didn't show the damage they were adding to the group from their buffs. So they were doing less damage than healers, and people were like, this class is fucking dog shit. It's like, if you actually upload it to Warcraft logs, you could actually see how much damage they do. And when they first came out, they were fucking bonkers. They were crazy. Oh my god.
Oh wow.
But like, people just look at the fucking parser and are like, this fucking thing sucks.
Yeah.
They just don't know how it works because they're fucking stupid.
That's player bases in a nutshell. Then again, the WoW community is filled with people who care more about their parses than doing mechanics.
Certainly can be.
I would say that's same for 14 too. I wouldn't say that's just WoW.
Oh, maybe I'm just sheltered. You guys
No, 14. You've never done parse runs before.
No. No.
They're not fun. What's that? One person got a damage down? Reset. It's not fun.
It's incredibly frustrating when you can't reach a damage check on an extreme. You're like, okay, well, I know I'm not the problem. I don't have a meter to see who is the problem, but somebody, if not multiple people, are being the problem, because if you can't beat the DPS check on an extreme, doing something wrong.
In a slight tangent on the parsing thing, I think they're very important to have, genuinely. I wish 14 was more upfront with them, and like they actually let us use them. Because the thing is like, those logs, if you know how to read them, especially like reading like Warcraft logs too, they're really fucking helpful if you know what to look for. They're really good at showing you everything of like, if you overcapped on something, or if you could do this better, or the timing of this was wrong. Like, there's so much shit you can find in logs if you know how to read it. But then most of the time, people just look at their big funny number that they parse with and like, ooh, I'm doing good, and then don't look at anything else.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much more to it, but like, I guess the thing that you wanted to talk about for WoW stuff is like, how is the balance, and like, how does I don't know what else you wanted to talk about.
Basically,
I guess like the
so
classes.
Yeah, you staying in a queue for an hour is definitely, you can't play the game. That's not good, right?
That's more so like the M+ scoring thing being a problem, and people only looking at that. That's really the issue. The other thing is like, if you were going to join a random group for like a raid, that one's usually more dependent on what class you're playing and if they actually need you or not, right? Because in a WoW raid, if you're doing normal or heroic, right, they are 10-man to 30-man, and they are flex rating. So you can have a group of 12, you can have a group of 17, you can have a group of 22, and the raid will scale with that amount of people.
Okay.
You have to have a fine-tuned balance of your amount of healers that you have. It's usually 2 tanks, X number of healers, and then the rest DPS, right, to fill out just whatever. For DPS, you usually want an even split of melee and ranged, and then you need certain classes that bring certain buffs, like Paladin has their auras, Warlocks bring Warlock cookies and a portal that's like a movement ability that's really nice to have for raid. Mages bring an int buff. Monks bring a physical damage increase. I can't remember. I think Demon Hunter brings like a magic damage increase to the target that they are hitting, but there's a lot more of like that, like we used to have in old 14, right? Where you had your slashing resistance, your int down, your strength down, your piercing resistance, all that stuff we used to have back in Realm Reborn and Heavensward. And a lot of the class building for a raid team usually works around that. So you need like a fine tuning of that for something to work. Okay. What ends up happening, if you're talking about specifically class balancing, is most of the time people will look at that list I just showed you and be like, "Oh, you're at the bottom. Fuck that guy."
Yeah,
like that's essentially what ends up happening. But for the most part, I would make the argument that if you're doing raiding, you could probably get away with a couple of classes that are at the bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot more variance usually for DPS checks and WoW fights. I'm not going to say they're lenient, but you can usually get away with how well your raid members are gaming and actually doing their buttons and shit, because there are some fucking gamers in WoW that know how to hit their shit right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I guess
I love going into random keys and getting like a DPS that's like way above me, and I'm like, this dude is so fucking good. What is he doing?
This is cracked.
Yeah, like literally out of his fucking mind, just doing so much fucking damage. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. Is WoW's balancing kind of a dumpster fire sometimes? Yes. There's no hiding that. It can be a fucking hot mess. But you also have to realize there's so much more to work with in balancing. There's so much more. But the other flip side of that is that we have the coolest class design, man. There's some unique shit in WoW, and it's really fucking cool.
Yeah. Because I keep hearing that, and people are still playing it, and people are just raving about like all these cool things that you get and all the things that you can do, right?
I told you about the hero talent thing, right? That's coming in the next expansion. Yeah, that's like one thing that I'm really excited for, but that's also one of those things that's like, it could be really fucking cool or be an absolute balancing nightmare. Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
But they always like to try to do new things, usually for an expansion, like a new kind of borrowed power system is what it's usually called.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things. It's you either sacrifice the potential of balance, or you really get some cool fucking play styles for classes.
Yeah, I guess it's when.
Last thing to say is, WoW is usually a lot better at balancing their stuff in terms of like how quick they do it than 14. Because 14, we usually don't get a balance patch for like a while. Typically, right. I believe it takes a long time. WoW, they're like almost doing it like constantly now. Like almost every other week, you're gonna see like, oh, we're fine tuning this, or oh, we're fixing that, or we're nerfing this, like that type of stuff. You see a lot, like a lot.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna stop ranting now.
No, that's fine. It's because with things with. Because I still think that the 14 team is going to try and balance things. Like, all of a sudden getting more diverse stuff isn't going to mean that all of a sudden they're going to stop caring about balance altogether. It's just that you're probably going to see a bit more of a disparity than what we have right now. Instead of like 2 or 3% differences, it might be 5 to 10, you know, like what you see with WoW. And the side effect, whether or not it's a huge one, but something that we're going to have to deal with is the player base is... All right, we get some more diversity. There's going to be a little bit more of a disparity. There's going to be a much clearer meta. And are you willing to deal with the players that are not going to want to deviate from that? That will, you know, stop you from raiding or doing anything in the game. And I still feel you, like, even though I know that Yoshi P's put his foot down, no parsing, whatever, they need to do something to help improve the player base.
Oh my god, right.
They need to help.
There is such an easy solution for it, and you want to know what it is? The easiest fucking thing ever, and it's Stone Sky Sea is already in the fucking game.
Yeah.
Literally put a parser in Stone Sky Sea. That's it.
Yeah.
They would let you practice.
Yeah. And then you don't have to deal with other people. You're by yourself. You can practice your rotation. You can do the thing. I know it's not like, obviously hitting a dummy is completely different from doing a fucking fight, right? But you're figuring out the core rotation. I don't know how many times I sit there and just hit a fucking dummy when like a new rotation comes out, right? Like a new expansion, or I'm doing something in WoW. Like, I'll just spend fucking hours just hitting a dummy, just learning my rotation and building that muscle memory of knowing what to do. Like, they could just put a fucking parser in Stone Sky Sea, No one has to see your numbers. It's all
Yep.
you, and
Yeah.
then you just do your thing.
Well,
Then you
somebody-
you
yeah.
can actually see how well you're doing and how
At
you're
least
improving.
you know your rotation.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
you go in there and less looking at your hands now because you practiced a little.
Bless you. Yeah. No. And then just have it a bannable offense if people ask for a screenshot. You know.
Yeah, if people are talking about it and they're being toxic about it, yes, it would be the same thing of just they can be, some sort of punishment for
Right.
it if they're being an asshole about it. But like the other thing that they could do, and this is something I really wish they would have expanded on, was I think it's called the Novice Hall.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's so bad. Or it's
Okay,
It's like nothing.
It's so simple, but it has so much potential. Like
Potential,
you could have 'em
absolutely. Right now, they're
you
just
could
not
have them
tapping
for
into
every
any of it.
class and show you how to do your rotation for that current expansion, right?
Yeah.
Like you could just have it be like, oh, you're max level now. Here's how your class works.
I
right?
went through it with because Larry and I talked about it on a dual cast, and it was so bare bones. Like it started off pretty good. Hey, keep aggro, move stuff out of AOE's, help your teammates, heal your tank, all this cool stuff. Yeah, yep, that's pretty good. And then it just stops. Like everything
Yep.
in depth or anything.
It gives
that
you
need
like
to
the
know.
bare minimum, and then you have to figure out everything else on your own.
What are your cooldowns?
I'd love to see one do stack mechanics, spread mechanics,
Oh, absolutely,
Because
yeah.
like they're homogenizing what they all look like, the symbol markers.
Mhm.
Get an idea. What does a tank buster look like? If the tank buster is going to cleave, you can have that marker shown. Get an idea
Yep.
of what's coming up.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be all like right in the novice hall too. Novice hall, intermediate hall, advanced hall, master hall, grandmaster
Yeah.
hall. You can have a whole
Throw
system.
some little rewards in there. Entice
Yeah,
people. Do the
glamour. All has to be
freaking
in glamour
content.
too.
Glamour mounts.
Give us meaningful rewards outside of raid, please.
Yeah.
We got the Criterion thing. That Criterion thing is promising.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
The-
Criterion
the
has
upgrade
the
weapon?
potential to be something really cool. I wanted it to be our version of like Mythic Plus. That's what I wanted it to be. Something
It would
where
have
you
been
could
such
like
a stretch
really
for them
get-
to actually hit that.
It would have been, but like imagine having some other form of like getting like really good gear for like your character, right? Like
Oh, I can't.
That's
help but
how-
imagine
that's how current Mythic Plus is, where the Mythic raid, right, gives you like really good eye level. I think it's like 480 something right now in WoW.
Mhm.
In M Plus, from your vault, which is like a weekly reward thing, if you do the highest level of rewards from Mythic Plus, you get like Mythic level gear, like from the
Mhm.
raid, basically. It's not the same gear, but it's that equivalent-ish eye level, and it's really nice because you can just get really good gear for your characters.
Oh, so you want
Like-
Diadem back?
I'm
Ah! Diadem was cool though. Like it had aspects of cool stuff,
It
I should
did.
say.
It did.
But no, I am 100% with you on the like alternate ways to get raid gear. I am so sick of it just being tombstone gear or raid gear. Like,
Yeah.
snooze. I want a whole gear set involved with like Criterion and be like, is like maybe your best in slot then is gonna be the fourth floor chest piece or the third floor chest piece now I think, and like
have-
maybe the legs from the Criterion and then maybe the helm from the Criterion and then like the boots from like tombstone. Like that'd make gearing more interesting, especially after they took away accuracy.
Yeah, I want to. Okay, fuck accuracy, but I want to bring up that what the fuck was I gonna say? God damn it! I literally just had it. Someone start talking about something else. I'm gonna think about that for a second. Hold
All
on.
right. Well, so it doesn't seem like yeah, they're the toxic players in WoW, and that might just be a cultural thing in there, and we need ways to be able to deal with them if something were to happen like that in 14. But it still seems like people enjoy having the options. One thing that's different though, when talking about WoW, that makes it a little bit more difficult when changing things up, that wouldn't be an issue in 14, is the need to level an entirely new character if
Yes.
whatever job isn't working out. I don't know how much
will
different it
make-
is to level up a character versus just leveling up the job, but I'll leave that to you guys to...
I'll make an argument for WoW right now that it's much easier to level a new character right now. Like significantly
now?
easier. Yeah, like stupidly fucking easy now to level a character. You could do it in like a
Okay.
day.
Yeah, but
Because
comparatively...
last I played, it was actual hell to level a character.
The way
I mean,
it
when
works
was
now
hell.
is instead, you know how it used to be where you would go through every expansion like subsequently It'd be really slow. You'd go through like classic, then you go through BC, then you go through Wrath. That's not how it works anymore. There's a tutorial island thing if you want to do it, if you need to. It's you start at level 1, it gets you to level 10. Then I think you have to unlock this if you already have like a character that's higher level, right? But you get a thing called Chromie Time, which lets you pick an expansion, any expansion you want to level in. And then if you get bored of that expansion, you can just swap to another one. You can
Does it keep your quest progress?
Yes.
Okay.
It should, I believe. Once you've done that up to 60 right now, then you go into Dragonflight, and it's 60 to 70 as the new expansion. But there's also a
70
thing.
level cap?
Yeah.
Okay.
They did a level crunch like a while back.
As interesting as that is, for just because I gotta go soon. For like the comparison though, like it's easier now in WoW, but 14 doesn't have to worry about that. Does that make it a little bit better? If like the job that you're used to playing isn't quite as hot right now, so it would be better if you maybe like leveled this one. You don't have to go through another character. Does that alleviate some of the pain, do you think?
I think it would. I mean, I don't know why it wouldn't. Like, it'd be so nice to be able to like have all my glams ready, all my food still prepared, all my crafters still good to go. Like I can still craft myself my own gear, my own food and whatnot. You know, like life would be so much easier in my opinion if you got, because I saw that little bit in the overview and I'm like, that's such a good idea. Like, oh my god, if your class was in meta, just switch over. You got the same character. You know, you still got to keep all your stuff.
Yeah, and for I guess I'm still a 2.0 baby, so it is a little different. But if you want one of the new jobs, you don't even have to level up from 1 anymore.
Yeah,
you just start. You're leveling up what 20, 30 levels.
Yeah, because it's 10 levels behind whatever the max was of that expansion. So 20
you're
levels.
talking about like the 14 jobs, like Red Mage and Sam. Like, that's great. That's a great system where they just have it be like really high level already. That's great.
So it's
though not everybody likes that. I know that for a fact. Some people would rather just have them all start at 1.
I guess because it's harder to learn the class later, but
I
don't know.
I don't know about that. I like it. I like the way that it is. I guess the only benefit to having it start from level 1 would be you could just go through Palace, I suppose, to get that experience. But yeah, just learning your buttons, because it is a lot getting now 80 levels of buttons all at once.
Well, the idea would be that you've played something else and you kind of know how the game works at that point, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it's
God,
still
you would think, but go back to the player base.
What's reading? What's a tooltip?
My gladiator hasn't earned their paladin stone yet.
Oh, God.
Gladiator and fucking creator, or no, Midas.
Was that in Midas?
It was in Midas Duty Finder.
Oh my goodness!
Fucking gladiator, like get me out of here, dude.
That's writing that blacklist to prevent them from being in my DF.
Exactly. These are the people we need removed. Or I remember Choco telling me about the one person who's like, what cooldowns are you hitting? All of them. What do you mean? I have a macro that goes through all of them.
Oh yeah.
Hate that.
And he'd press it before the combat, so you see him just cast all these buffs, then run in.
Yep.
These don't get me through the fight. First tank buster explodes.
Explodes.
Oh, dude, I love it. So yeah, I guess it's nice that even if there's no like definitive of like, I don't know, like putting it to words, but the fact that you're still talking about World of Warcraft in a positive light in spite of having some negative, arguably a worse or more toxic community, it's you find ways around it, right? It's
game fun with friends.
Yeah,
play with friends.
That's kind of the thing, is like a static group eliminates most of it, and not just, oh, I found these people that are now I'm in a static group. Those are still randos until you mesh, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
The last thing I'll say about the community thing for WoW is there is definitely an overarching problem with it, but I've had some fine experiences with randoms before, like people that are just like, we just did it. Like no one says anything in the party. We just get through the thing, do the stuff. That's about it. Like it's not all bad, but
Mhm.
it's definitely rough sometimes.
I've been in one Mythic Plus thing. I know you talk about making key times and whatnot, and we were
Yeah.
doing this for Raider IO, and we wiped to the first boss, and the Wrestle Druid was like, "I'll finish if you want, but I don't care about any of the gear. I was here for Raider IO," and everyone's like, "Yeah, me too," myself included. I was like, "I was just here to raise my Raider IO for the week," and they're
Yeah.
like, "Cool, can we abandon?" Yeah, and everyone's just like, super cool that just they kind of abandoned the key because we didn't want
Yeah,
it.
just leave. Like who the fuck cares?
That's neat.
I mean, so like they're not all bad.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You can find people you mesh with.
Yeah, and but that's the thing too for finding a static. It's not just an overnight thing. I can't tell you guys how many times like somebody new has like joined or subbed in or something like that, and they're just like, I'm not clicking with so and so. I'm like, trust me, you'll get used to it. Like, think about it this way, you know, they don't mean it like this, or just get used to it this way, and then eventually it kind of wears off. But you know, people have to have that time to make room for each other's faults, understand who each person is, and you know, it's not an overnight thing. All of a sudden, oh, I have a static, all my problems are solved. No, you're still gonna have people who are issues. Even in the beginning of, I think I can talk about it now. It's been 10 years. Even when we started Nest back in, well, like Nest 0.5, basically, in Heaven's Word, there were people that were friends, like year-long friends in the raid group that we just had to get out of the party. Like their attitudes prevented them from really meshing with anybody else and making it,
Oh, God.
who was Craig. Craig was a bad one. Steve didn't like showing up.
Oh,
I love Mike, but he just sometimes decided, yeah, I'm not gonna show up anymore either, or I'm done here.
I appreciate Mike for that because that's how I got in. Is he just kind of stopped showing up? And
Yeah.
they're like, can you keep filling? Yeah, sure, why not? You want to fill in next year? Yeah, sure, why not?
And it worked out. Like it's just,
Yeah.
it's something that organically happened over time, and you know, you just gotta keep figuring out. It requires a social maturity too. Like you just learn how to interact with people.
Yeah.
And again, just understand that the people you're raiding with are still people, and they're gonna make fuck ups. And one thing that I appreciate, like even if I've gotten mad at somebody in raid or they're just like fucking livid, if I go aside and I'm like, hey, didn't like this, I probably said things I shouldn't have. Can we avoid that in the future? And it's usually like, yeah, okay. It's not a, oh, are you saying this about me? No, it's just like, oh yeah, my bad, or I see how you feel like that, and it has to come from a place of not pointing fingers, as well, right? But I've always appreciated like, hey, I had a problem with this. Can we maybe not do that again? And it's never a, you know, I'm never put down for it, right? But not to my face anyway. But
No, I think that's always a good. I think that's one thing Nest does well is like anytime there's any sort of issue, it's just brought up in raid chat or we talk about it at another point. It's just like, okay, this I didn't like. I didn't care for this. If we could do this differently, and be like, oh, everyone's always like, oh yeah, totally. I didn't know that was a thing, or I feel like I, was on this too much, on this subject too much, and I think it works out really well.
yeah.
That's one thing I think Nest does really well.
And until somebody's like, I'm like, hey, can you please not do that? And they're like, no, I should be able to do that. I'm like, okay, you're on borrowed time. I'm gonna cut you out now. So, well, that's about it for now. I gotta go eat dinner. Thank you guys for tuning in, having this conversation with me. At some point, we should have a just strictly job design podcast, like just throw ideas around. Have
Go through every job.
That would last a long time.
It sure would. We could split it up between categories of like tank, melee, healer. I definitely have a tank that I really want to see in the game, that I like. So maybe we'll start there at some point. But I'm going to do these a little bit more often now that we're off the raid clock, or at least if we're guaranteed out of it'll bend, because we'll have to like clear on Thursdays, or just be like, if we don't clear Thursday, we out of here.
Yeah, we'll clear Thursday. I gotta believe.
We got it.
We've done it once. We could do it again.
So, but yeah, we'll be back raiding next week, and yeah, we're gonna be trying to do more of these moving forward. So, thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Raya. You guys have a great rest of your night.
Thank you, Drak.
Thank you.
See you later. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Whether you're listening or you're watching on YouTube, whatever the case, I appreciate you guys hanging out. Let me know what kind of things you want to hear in the future and what you thought about our discussion. Just kind of spitballing, not quite as concise as I would normally do for a discussion video, but it's nice to be able to kind of spread our wings and you know, attack everything from different angles and even enjoy our tangents. But in any case, I hope you guys have a great rest of your night, day, wherever you are. God bless you all, and we'll see you next time.